to the Daily Talk Show with host Rich Vernadeau. This is the Saturday, October 13th, 2018 edition of Daily
We
Talk.
do get it, and every now and then we'll get a good job, or the inspector will say, hey, this is the better way of doing things. Let's do it this way.
Yeah. There are companies, quite a few companies who actually work that way. But let me just mention this to you as a thought. You're talking about 1 hour. I'm talking about all, working that way all the time.
Yeah.
Individually and together. But and there are companies that do that too, by the way. This is not my idea is not a new idea. It's just one that's used very often. It's just not used very often. And so what eventually I've ended up doing is beginning to develop such companies. But that's for later on in the conversation. But it's one thing to just, sit around and talk about things, and it's another thing to get them done. And that's where eventually I hit it in this whole process.
Tell us about your course and so forth, about the response that you're getting to your new approach.
There was an echo there, and I didn't understand that.
Sorry about that. Jerry, I was asking you to tell us a little bit about the course in terms of the response that you're getting and how quickly and how widespread it's taking off. Tell us a little about it.
Well, of course, we're a startup company. We don't exist yet. The company is called the Company of One Plus. Now, where did I come up with that idea? Well, for 10 years or 20 years back, about 20 years ago, I was involved in a new idea called knowledge management. And I was not consulting, but advising, I will say, knowledge managers in Fortune 500 companies. And the whole idea of knowledge management was that, to start with, people's ideas are a great asset for a company. What they don't understand is that those ideas belong to the people. And then if they don't share those ideas, they never come to pass. And so knowledge management was supposed to make it a safe place, make the workplace a safe place where people could actually share their ideas, have them come to pass, and get a fair share of the benefit, the financial benefit from those ideas. But it was very difficult both for business and labor to accept this idea because they'd been trained differently. That businesses were trained to hoard information. And so they would turn knowledge which is in a person's head, into information and put it into the company vault. And workers had a very hard, difficult time with it because they were trained not to give up what they knew because knowledge is power, and I must keep it to myself. Otherwise, if I give it to somebody else, if I share it with somebody else, I've shot myself in the foot. My argument back in those days was, well, every time you go into a group and you share your knowledge and they share their knowledge, you maybe, and you haven't lost your knowledge, by the way, you still have it, you just, now somebody else has it too, but in that group, everybody has everybody else's knowledge. So all of a sudden you give 6 people, you gave up 1 and you got 5. This is pretty good. And you, in the process, grow, and as you grow, the company grows. I tell the company, well, you know what? It just didn't work. Knowledge management is still around, but it's under the burden of this kind of attitude, both on the part of business and labor. And the reason is the business model does not work for that idea. And so I came up with this new business model. Now, you asked me how it's going. Well, we're a startup company. There's a lot of, I'm talking about it on my social network. I'm getting a great deal of feedback, but it's still all talk and no action, with the exception of the fact that I am now beginning to put together the company that will help people create companies that will be socially responsible, self-managed, and profit-sharing. And I'm putting together a team of 7 people. I'm one, so I'm looking for 6 top professionals in various fields of business management, and they will come into the company of One Plus, and they will be sharing their intellectual capital. I believe real strongly in the value of intellectual capital. It's not something that you carry around in your pocket; you carry it in your head, and it has value. And so these people, and I have 2 or 3 of the. I don't call them executives; I call them heads of this and that. Heads of intellectual capital, for instance. We're coming together now with this team, and once they're together, we're going to put the flesh on the bones of this business model that I'm talking to you about. So we have a long way to go. But I am so encouraged because I'm attracting some of the best minds in the country. I will say the world. I really want to focus this company on the United States first. I'm not thinking global. I'm not thinking about saving the world. I'm thinking about helping people at the grassroots overcome their economic problems. I'm starting way down there. I'm not looking to go global. Although I've got a candidate who is global, and boy, is that exciting.
I got one comment. The company I was speaking of earlier was Lockheed Martin.
Okay.
And don't hold yourself just locally, because the company I work for, they do a similar issue, and you can go back in their history and physically see every time they boomed where they could have gotten bigger. And the biggest I've ever seen that company is 15 employees, including suits. And I've been with the company 15 years. Right now we're at a staff of 6. And that's with suits, a staff of 6.
Yeah.
And if he would have kept moving forward, he could have been at a staff easily of 50 by now.
Yeah.
And really bringing in a couple $1 million a year. Now, we are globally, in a sense, as our primary customer. Matter of fact, I've got a product in my department that is going to somewhere in Africa. I forget where at, but it's going somewhere in Africa. We have shipped to Chad, which is in Ireland. We've shipped out there probably 6 or 7 times in the last 5 years. But don't restrict yourself just to the States. If you've got that opportunity to bring in people that have a global link, bring them in, and just remember, that your ultimate goal is globally.
Yeah.
Just,
Why?
Just don't restrict yourself, because once you get in that rut, it's hard to come out of.
You couldn't possibly know how important what you're telling me is to me, because I have a person who wants to take over what used to be called the HR department. HR is now not a company function anymore. It's being outsourced. And I think maybe Rich mentioned that before. And so what's left is really what I would call knowledge management and social knowledge, not management, knowledge capital and social capital. And so I have a guy who's an international HR guy who is very excited about changing the way HR works and sees this business model that I have in mind as the place to do it. And he is so, this man is so successful. He's got homes in 4 or 5 different countries because he's always on the go. I mean, he's big, and he's messing around with little old me and my little old idea. And I'm excited about it. At first I said, oh, no, this guy is overqualified for what I want to do. And then I'm saying, well, but wait a minute. He's making my mind go, He's coming in and saying essentially what you've just said. Well, I want to tell you something. I'm almost 80 years old, and I am not set in my ways. And I don't think that I know it all. And my mind is always open to ideas and to people who put themselves behind those ideas and help change the way. And this is the mission. This is not just a company. This is a mission to change the way economics, the way capitalism, first of all, and then economics works for the most of us, not the few of us.
Dan Patrick, do you have another comment or question for Jerry Ash?
Yeah, I've got a couple of things here. First of all, I was in information technology. I was a senior computer scientist at Lockheed Martin. And I think that it's interesting you're talking about people not willing to share information, because information in a corporate structure equals power, especially when it comes to computer science, computers. And I've seen more information hoarders than I'd care to see ever in a lifetime. A lot of people are under the mistaken belief that if they're the only one that knows how to do a certain task or operation, that it gives them a certain status that the corporation can't go on without them, et cetera, and then job security, I guess, is what they're looking for. But speaking amongst all of us, at one time I worked at Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab, and we kind of had a situation where a younger man had built the network and had some trouble with management and made a bitter mistake of saying he'd cripple the network if they didn't go along with his ideas. And he was promptly taken out in handcuffs, and because it was a DOD, you just don't make those kind of threats at a DOD installation. And I've seen this backfire on people like just in a horrible way. So you're very right on that point about the people trying to keep, and I think the thing that we came to that we came to believe is that amongst us that there isn't any single individual that can't be replaced, because there's no guarantee that even the director of the lab might not have a heart attack tomorrow. And that that mission of that corporation or that lab is going to go on regardless of, what's going on. So,
I really appreciate what you're saying. And let me tell you, I call this group that I'm putting together of specialists, I'm calling them my dream team. And one of the members of my dream team is the head of information and communication technology. Now, I'm not meaning to say that that's all the responsibility of that one head leader. That's just what he or she focuses on. But the person who takes over human resources, or whatever we end up calling it, I'm going to call it intellectual capital. That person will be as much involved with the head of information and communication technology as he will with, or she will with anyone. So they'll be working together, those two. Will they be just two? No, they'll be the whole team. They'll be all seven, and they'll be working together. I don't see, yes, there are, and I'm happy that there are examples which say that there are companies that work that way, but I don't see it very often, and I'm going to see it in this company, and this company, you know what this company is going to do? It's going to create new companies, help people start new companies with the same business model. I'm excited about it. And I'm excited when I hear people talking, as you have, but in a positive way, not complaining about the lot and how business works and and politics and all that, but rather what's good and what can we do to make good work.
And that's a wonderful thought, and the problem that you run into a lot of times is that there's certain individuals that no matter what you try to relate to them about what you're trying to say, that what's good for the common good for everyone is good for all. It seems to be human nature to be insecure, self-promoting, self-grandizing. I ran a couple of significant IT projects, including the effort to put the federal government online at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And I was actually fortunate enough, just by default, because I probably knew more than most of the other younger people, I was a little more mature, to be the manager of that effort. And when I found people not disclosing and hoarding information, I immediately took steps to put them off the project. One of the things I made very clear to everyone working under me, be constant and clear communication and sharing of information between all of the engineers involved, or else you would not be here long. Because I'm so big on, sharing information for the good of the project or effort or whatever it is, the goal that you're trying to reach. And, unfortunately, I had to put a couple of people off the project because they're hard-headed. They just couldn't get it. What would you do in that situation? You have a wonderful idea, but human nature is what it is. You're going to run into those individuals that just don't get it for one reason or another.
Well, that's right. And let me tell you, greed is in our DNA.
And I believe that.
There's no question about that. Greed is in our DNA. What we as human beings have to do is to overcome that greed. Wherever we are, whoever we are, whatever we do, whether we're, the top, owner of a giant company or whether we're just down there on the assembly line, we have to overcome our greed. And on the other hand, why don't we put our greed to work for common good? Now, how do we do that? Well, we change the business model. And that's the third pillar in this business model that I'm talking about. People no longer work for a paycheck. Now, that's pretty radical. They work for a fair share of the profit they help create, okay? And I'm putting together a system of, I don't want to call it management, I want to call it leadership, in which people are motivated to give their best.